Welcome in squids and octopuses to the final asset of basic knowledge that could come in handy for you to close the last gaps in your mechanical understanding of the game. This will also conclude my guide series of essentials and gets you ready to dive into the real experience of the more intelligence-based part of Splatoon. Stuff like strategy, maps, game awareness and decision making. But that's none of our concern right now, just a little outlook for later. I recommend you to check out the link in the description or at the top of the screen to catch up on all the previous guides in my playlist, because this video here is supposed to transition you over to the next step of properly learning competitive Splatoon. And I want all of you to be completely informed before you leave any chance of a deficit in your pool of options for later on. In fact, you don't even need to watch this video here if you only care for the bare minimum of required basics. If you happen to switch around weapons a lot and you don't want to commit to playing a specific one for a longer time, then you can actually ignore this guide for now and come back to it later once you change your mind and plan to invest more into a weapon of your choice. But do catch up on the other guides before you go ahead. If you did that, you can consider yourself prepared to get into the strategy-based fundamentals from here on. However, if you are looking to take your gameplay one step further than anyone else and want to learn about your favorite weapon so that you gain a deeper understanding of it and get to know its hidden potentials and uses at some point, only then you might benefit from this video here. But since you haven't left yet, I will just assume that you want to master a certain weapon kit and show off with the tricks of your signature pick. Maybe you even discover a groundbreaking detail and shape the metagame, who knows? But it all hinges upon how well your gear set fits your personality. So let's see what we can do about that. You probably know what gear is and roughly how it works. You simply put something into the slots of your character's clothes and then get the benefits of it when you play in a match. If you're not sure what effect does what exactly, I recommend looking it up on the internet because the game itself is a bit unclear most of the time and we will need to be as specific as we can if we want the most value out of our personal gear set/build. I put you another link down in the description that might come in handy, but I can obviously not guarantee that it will still work with the most recent game version by the time you watch this video here. Though knowing about gear effects is one thing, but getting to understand what you actually need and what is optimal for your ideas and playstyle, that is the rather problematic part. So how are we gonna conquer this issue? To be honest, nobody can know what you feel best with other than yourself, therefore I cannot really tell you what ends up good for you or not. And for the same reason, you should also not look up what abilities other people use for their gear when you start out to find your own personal build. However, I tried to come up with some sort of roadmap to show you a way around the key aspects during the process. I advise you to always start from complete scratch and begin with an all-empty gear set. Well, that's obviously not possible since every gear piece will always come with a pre-installed ability in the main slot and there's no way to get rid of it entirely. To work around this game design, you want to make sure you only use abilities that do not actively affect anything about the gameplay of your weapon kit. There's only a handful that meet this criteria, and those include Quick Respawn, Thermal Ink, Haunt, Respawn Punisher and Stealth Jump. So you want to start out with all your 3 main slots filled with any combination of those effects. You should probably avoid Respawn Punisher here since it's kinda working against you in terms of testing your kit. But once you got your configuration with the main slots full and sub-slots empty, you can then just play some matches and see how it feels. You will quickly level up your gear and fill up your slots with random effects over time, and depending what you get, you can then start focusing on one of those abilities to see what it does and if you need it for your gameplay. I would say there are roughly about 5 groups you can associate the effects with, and I strongly recommend to go one by one within each group's effects to make sure you don't miss out on any potential boosts important to your playstyle. The first group consists of everything regarding your ink tank, which addresses the main and sub weapon in your kit. I also included sub power up and intensify action here too, because those can enhance your weapon's effectiveness and therefore could make you prioritize them differently than without their boosts. The second group is pretty much the same deal, but for your special weapon instead. This is most likely the easiest group, so you should be able to get through this the quickest in your initial approach of finding your gear set. Group 3 is about mobility, which can affect how likely you can get out of sticky situations, as well as how much pressure you can put on your opponents to get them into such threatening positions. And of course, it's just to lose less time to maneuver around the stage in general. Then we have group 4 as the kind of leftover group for the last 2 stackable effects. I would say those are somewhat convenience picks because sub-defense and quick respawn are more like countermeasures and do not really do anything to the mechanical part of your gameplay. So in terms of finding a gear set that improves your weapon kit itself the most, I think you should prioritize this group last and use it only when you can afford it or if you have a specific use in mind for it. Speaking of such, the final group lists all abilities exclusive to main slots, and all of those are more or less situational as opposed to the stackable effects that have a rather general use. If you end up with enough space for a main slot in your gear set, then you can consider one of these effects if you think they can complement your way of playing with your weapon kit. Those effects are very costly, so make sure their use for you is worth the investment. Alright, but now back to the process. So as you play matches with your empty gear, you gain XP and fill up your slots with random stackable effects. You now choose any of them from group 1 to 3 and keep playing matches while paying close attention to what your chosen effect changes for your gameplay. Optimally, you want to start with one sub effect and then gradually increase the amount you stack on top of it. That means you can scrub your gear slots until you get an additional random sub of the same effect you currently investigate. Or you can switch around your clothes in a way to match the next step in the staircase of adding to your chosen effect. You don't need them to be on the same gear piece, so you could as well use 10 ability chunks to buy the additional effect you want into a slot of a different gear piece. But that's only if you have a lot of spare chunks you don't need. If you reach the point where you get to 3 subs or more and you still want to stack higher, then you can switch your gear to use one of the main slots instead of 3 subs to free up space for more testing while basically keeping your effect's current intensity level. Because one main slot counts almost the same as 3 sub slots. No matter how you do it, try to find the bare minimum amount of each effect that you can accept to still feel good with. If you struggle to notice a difference for each single sub effect you add, there's a little trick that can help you to realize what to look out for most effects. You can use the exclusive main abilities Opening Gambit, Comeback and Last Ditch Effort to test how greater amounts of certain effects feel like. And since they are only active for some time, you can even compare the differences within the same match. It's also a good chance to get to know those main abilities at the same time, so maybe you grow to like them and consider them for your gear set. Anyway, once you found your minimum amount of stackable effects, you memorize that for later or write it down somewhere. Then you go on to test the next ability and do the same for that and so on until you made it through all abilities at some point. And then you combine the results of all your testings into one prototype build, which basically makes up your first personal gear set. It will most likely not fit together at first, so try to think which effects you prioritize the most and which you could sacrifice to make space for your most wanted abilities. For the unlikely case that you have less on your list than the full gear set's capacity, then you obviously just fill it up with whatever you want. And that is how you get to the first version of your very own build, but the journey is far from over. You can now play with your preferred abilities and see if it works smoothly or if you have to tweak anything to round out your gear. As a matter of fact, you're never truly done with adjusting your gear set, because you also grow as a player and find different ways of playing. Therefore, the gear you use will also have to catch up to match the new playstyles and strategies you develop over time. But that part is entirely up to yourself and nobody can help you with that. If you reach this point, you are finally allowed to look at other people's builds and maybe draw inspiration from their ideas. However, it is probably still better to go by your own observation and feeling whenever you adjust anything in your personal gear set. Either way, that was it for this guide series. I thank you all a squid ton for watching and wish you the best of success with finding your own playstyle and build. If you took away anything from the series, do yourself a favor and link it to other people to educate them as well. With that said, have fun and see you in the game or in another video. Goodbye.